to jump right over, leave for a while to keep some composure. You burned it all down with your bones all soaked, cast blame for the spark while charging suckers for the smoke. Now it's up to your heart and I'm scared. All this unsustainable rage, think it over. All this wastes our precious time. Started breathing out as I covered your eyes like a wall. I couldn't live without thought. Without your feelings I'd be feeling alright. I guess now it's up to my heart. Think it over. All this unsustainable way. Think it over.
Hello everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, and even good morning for some of you guys. Welcome to the Bose-Pro webinar on choosing the L1-Pro system that's right for you. My name is Craig Small, Product Line Manager at Bose-Pro for the L1-Pro portable systems. And I'm joined today by our special guest, singer-songwriter Will Dailey, world-renowned, but a local treasure to us New Englanders. Will has been featured on many TV shows that you've watched. Share the stage with Eddie Vedder, has played Farm Aid. I can't believe that National Throat was released in 2014. That seems hard to believe. Critically acclaimed National Throat, 10 million Spotify plays, reached the top 20 on Billboard's Heat Seekers chart, recently released Golden Walker about a year ago, and just released Pattern of Destruction, a compilation of really cool covers by Prince, Arcade Fire, Tom Waits, and others. Will was scheduled to have a really killer 2020, but global pandemic kind of crept up on us and appropriately, sort of shut the world down. However, Will has been very active in our local community as well as nationally, doing some socially outdoor distant gigs, and also working with us at Bose as part of our singer-songwriter community or Bose user community, when developing the L1-Pro line of products, doing some really active fundraiser events such as the Isolation Tour, where he raised about $26K for local Boston venues, hosting live online Q&A for Crossroads and Citizens Bank's Live and Local, featuring Kay Hanley, Steel Gold, Dalton and the Sheriffs. So, ladies and gentlemen, Will Dailey. How's it going, Will?
Hi, how you doing? Nice to see you, Craig. It's going well. I'm making do, and I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to talk about this new product. I've been lucky enough to be involved with Bose for kind of a long time now. Started with the F1, and then the S1, and now this new series. And each new development, each new product, I am kind of inspired as a performer by them. So thanks for having me. Thanks for being so supportive of me and that wonderful introduction.
Awesome. So Will has a very kind of a unique perspective in that he has sort of worked with us throughout the development of each of the systems. He has experience with legacy L1 products, so he has a good lens to compare legacy L1 with L1-Pro. Also utilized the S1 in lots of gigs, as well as helped us with some artist feedback on that product as well. So today we're going to talk about choosing the L1 system that is right for you. The L1-Pro system is a full line of new portable line arrays. Bose invented the portable line array 17 years ago with the original, what we now call the Model 1, sort of a game changer in terms of form factor, portability, and also just filling rooms with sound. It's just amazing 180-degree horizontal coverage pattern and really tight vertical patterns. So we are going to kind of dive in. We had a product announcement on October 27th where the L1-Pro 8 became available for sale. So the L1-Pro 8 We've got 8 drivers in the mid-high array and a 7 by 13-inch racetrack. This is our replacement for the L1 Compact. Although the L1 Compact will remain in the line for the foreseeable future, the L1-Pro 8 is in fact the new and improved L1 Compact. The L1-Pro 16 will start shipping to customers this week, as it just became available in our distribution centers. This has 16 drivers in the mid-high array, as well as a 10 by 18-inch racetrack driver, so sort of the big brother to the L1-Pro 8 in the same form factor. This is a replacement essentially for the L1-Pro S, the L1 Model S with a B1 base module, yet still super portable. And then we've got the L1-Pro 32, which has 32 drivers in the mid-high array. This is our flagship portable line array. This gets paired with a sub 1 or sub 2 powered base module, floor to ceiling articulated line array drivers. This is our replacement for the L1 Model 2, which had 24 drivers. Remarkable improvements in sonic quality, in SPL and bandwidth, and also portability. We've made the L1-Pro 32 60% lighter than the Model 2, so that's kind of remarkable. Paired with the powered sub 1 and sub 2 powered base modules. And then also all 3 of those line arrays, 4 total systems, can be operated with the L1 Mix app, which is a control application for the I/O. So we'll get into a little bit more details a little bit later on what's on that I/O. So coverage patterns vary slightly from system to system. The L1-Pro 8 with its C-shaped line array gives us about 40 degrees of a sonic beam, plus or minus 20 degrees. With its 8 articulated drivers in a C-shape, we've got 120 dB continuous SPL and 118 dB peak SPL. 280 total watts, very efficient total watts, Class D amplification. The Pro 16 has what we call a J-shaped line array with 16 drivers in the mid-high array. This, as you can see, is good for elevated stages as it fires down as well as on the floor with that tight top vertical control. Quite a bit louder than the Pro 8 at 118 dB continuous and 124 dB peak SPL. That system is 1250 total watts combined with the mid-high array as well as the subwoofer. And then the L1-Pro 32 is a really tight straight line array with tight vertical control on top and the bottom, roughly 0 degrees, ideal for short stages as well as being on the floor. And I'll touch more on this in a little bit, but because there's so many drivers in that line array, the drop off over distance is truly remarkable. It's able to fill some really large spaces as well as ideal for outdoor venues or outdoor spaces, which are sort of the only gigs we can get these days. 122 dB continuous, 128 dB peak when paired with the sub 1. And then with the sub 2, we've got 117, sorry, that was sub 2. With sub 1 was 117 dB and 123 dB peak SPL. So, and then all of those, of course, featuring our 180 degrees of horizontal coverage. So all 3 systems feature the same onboard mixer. You can see here from left to right, we've got the L1-Pro 8, the L1-Pro 16, and the L1-Pro 32. A little bit closer, we've got 3 channels with a clear channel delineation. And kind of the main control of the I/O panel is the rotary encoder, which is a push button. So rather than have separate knobs for volume, treble, bass, and reverb, you simply press those rotary encoders and it allows us to select each parameter. There's also an LED ring around those knobs to indicate your position. We've got channel mutes. We've got default tone match presets on channels 1 and 2 for handheld dynamic mic, as well as piezo acoustic guitar. We've got combo input jacks with phantom power on channels 1 and 2. Channel 3 is our auxiliary or Bluetooth streaming system. So we've got the Bluetooth connection as well as a 3.5 millimeter stereo sound and a 1/4-inch mono as well. So you could connect the keyboard to this channel if you wanted to. And then we've got a system EQ, which is an EQ that optimizes for live performance, for recorded music if you're a mobile DJ, and also for public speaking. This is an EQ that gets placed over the master. We've got a USB service port for line out, for making firmware upgrades, and then we also have a line out, full balanced XLR line out. And then we have a tone match port for powering a T4 or T8 tone match mixer. And everything you can do on the products I/O panel-wise, you can also do in L1 Mix, in addition to other features such as selecting from our tone match library of presets, saving scenes as well. So before users make a purchase of an L1-Pro 8, we kind of drill it down to 3 sort of qualifying questions. The first being, how big are the spaces you'll be playing? What types of audio sources are you going to be connected to? And then what do you value most, performance or portability? While everything is, we love the performance of everything, they're also really portable systems as well. So take those into consideration. So number 1, how big are the spaces you'll be playing? So spaces meaning ranging from coffee shops, cafes, clubs, bars, and also outdoor spaces. And Will, you've had a chance to use all the new L1-Pro systems as well as legacy systems. What are your thoughts on choosing a system based on the space that you're playing?
Right. I mean, the first time I heard the 8, even when it was not fully finished yet, I thought, this is amazing, one of the more powerful speakers I've heard, and that was just the 8. So it is very powerful. I think a lot of people who are familiar with the S1 were impressed with the power. I played a gig with the 8, and I didn't need anything else. I wasn't lacking. It was house concert type vibe on a back porch. I could have added another person to that. I could add another mic. I could add another second guitar with me. And it would have been fine around that size audience. And also the L8 will make the best home Bluetooth speaker you have. And the compactness, like Craig is saying, it just in packing it up, moving around, but then just sitting here in my home studio, I didn't feel like it was in my way or anything, and I just left it up, and then I just played music through the whole time. In the L16, I used in a larger back room concert this summer, and the only problem I had with it was that everyone was commenting on how good it sounded, and I was like, wait, what, did you like the show? It really made an impression. Nobody knew that I was using a brand new piece of Bose equipment. I didn't announce it or anything, and everyone was commenting on how it sounded. And that was to a larger, giant backyard that kind of went and went and went. And I was still solo. And again, I could have, with the L16, I would have gone to like a folk trio with it, easily DJ with it. I also would have used a 16 if I'm playing in a trio element and I don't need to run the drums through that. I'm just using vocals. And then, of course, the 32 I used for a Halloween party recently. And I don't know. I worry about the person who's ever going to have to push that to where it goes. There's no knowing where the end is for that as far as volume and coverage. The footprint it has on stage mixed with if you're a wedding band and you're a pro wedding band. Like you see so many wedding bands with the L1 legacies, and they're astonishing. The footprint on this is just a huge evolution for those type of bands, and a stereo pair of L32s would be a game changer for that professional band.
By footprint, you mean like literally the physical space that it's taking up
on stage? Because I've had the legacy for 5-6 years. Used it in all kinds of scenarios. Always powerful. Always brings. Everyone always comments on it. The performers that I put on stage with it. I run a series at Fenway Park in Boston, where I put bands on the roof deck of Fenway Park, and it covers 300 people easily, and shoots into the park, and that's the legacy. And this new one is it would seem how Bose kind of improved upon their own model, but it really just is stunning and has a lot more what I'll call headroom and even though it's really, really loud and covers all that area, it can go a lot louder, especially for the DJ. And when I'm loading out with the 32, like the 8 and the 16, but really with the 32, I'm thinking, I loaded the other day with an S1 in the backpack on my back, and the subwoofer in my right hand, and the rest of the 32 in my left hand. And I got to my car and I thought, I really have to do that idiot check. Like, am I leaving the cable? Am I leaving the cable? It shouldn't have been that easy. And I'm not exaggerating that. It kind of makes you if you're a performer and you're used to gigging all the time, it makes you think it shouldn't be this simple.
Yeah, with the 32, you really can carry the whole system in a single trip from the vehicle to the venue, and then from the venue back to the vehicle. Whereas a Model 2 with a B2, that you have to have some pretty strong hands. It's pretty much impossible to physically carry all those 4 pieces in a single trip. But we'll touch a little bit more on the portability aspect in a bit. We're looking at right now what we call throw over distance. And this is a chart really just to show you how well the sound propagates per system. Because these are line source versus a point source. A point source normally will sort of reduces 6 dB of sound every time you double the distance. Because these are line sources which propagate sound more efficiently as a collection of engineered line array speakers together. Particularly with the Pro 32, we actually cut that in half. So we're losing only 3 dB per doubling of distance. So as you can see here, looking at the Pro 8, you're talking about rooms that are you can reach comfortably. You can see the chart, the graph all the way over to the right where we say poor and optimal in terms of intelligibility. Rooms that are, approaching like 55, 60 feet-ish. Pro 16 with the more drivers in the line array, as well as the more power. We're talking about rooms that are over 100 feet. And then the Pro 32, which, as I keep saying, this remarkable drop off over distance, really you're over 200 feet here before you're hearing any sort of intelligibility loss in terms of an L1-Pro 32 system. They also functioning as a line array. A point source speaker, it's really like, in order to carry to the back of the room, it really has to be kind of screaming at that point source. And then when you have that 6 dB loss per doubling of distance, that means that if you're standing next to it, it's really loud. It's really difficult to have a conversation, as opposed to like a line source. The difference in volume is not necessarily that much greater when you're standing right next to the system versus when you're 10 feet away, 20 feet away. This in your DJ experience, Will, with the Pro 32 for your October, your Halloween event, people coming up to you and talking to you like right there next to the array.
Yeah, but it wasn't different. I'm usually, it's right next to me, but I'm about a foot back behind it, and I could still make it out. It's going straight out. So
cool. So consideration for how big the rooms that you're going to be playing. If you know for sure that you're going to be playing smaller rooms, the Pro 8 probably makes most sense for you. If you're not sure, you're going to be playing small to medium-sized venues. Pro 16 gives you the opportunity to fill those large rooms with spaces. And then the Pro 32 can also fill those small spaces, but has the opportunity to fill really large spaces as well.
I would just add that the 8 really tells you if you're a solo performer and you're doing house concerts and you're having some solo gigs and you need that with you, it's perfect. If you think you might need to scale into like rehearsing with your band and having some vocals go through it, then the 16's ready for you, kind of thing. And you'll know about the type of gigs that you're doing.
Cool. And then we looked at the slide earlier, just a reminder of that coverage pattern. So why does the C shape matter? A C shape matters if you're going to be on elevated stages, if you're going to be on the floor. It also gives you the opportunity for raked seating, albeit a smaller venue with raked seating. The Pro 16 would be for elevated stages as well as being on the floor, not ideal for rake seating. And then the Pro 32 for slightly elevated stages. You don't want to get that beam out of sort of the main, your torso through your head, main kind of sweet spot listening area. So those also go into consideration when selecting which kind of system is right for you. Next is the question is, what types of audio sources will be connected? And why does this matter? If I just skip ahead to the next slide here. We have singer-songwriters, we've got acoustic duos and trios, we've got mobile DJs, we've got bands, we've got public speaking events. Some of those instances, like if you're just plugging an acoustic guitar into a vocal microphone, any one of the systems will work for you. But when you get into use cases where you're going to be, let's say, miking a drum set, miking a kick drum, probably a Pro 16 or the Pro 32 with the sub 2 is going to be better for you because you're going to be able to hear the thump of that kick, as well as maybe playing bass guitar through that device. Keyboard, like left-handed keyboard parts, really want them to kind of have that thump. Maybe you want to optimize with an L1-Pro 16. You will, in particular, you're really good at scaling up or scaling down your gigs based on the venue or sort of the context of the gig. Any comments on what you're connecting to the L1-Pro system has a lot to do with which one you should choose.
Absolutely. And you kind of said it with the low end, and I would also say the amount of vocals you're going to have. And the low end, the 16 can handle your kick drum. It can handle your left hand on the keyboards or your bass guitar. But you'll know if your ensemble or the gigs that you're going to be doing frequently are going to have the kick, the keyboard, and the bass, then you know you got to go up to the 32 just to represent your sound and have that that space with those subwoofers for the low end.
Yeah, you're also going to need the output to be able to compete with an acoustic drum set as well. Like if you're doing rehearsal, you've got a PA in your rehearsal space and you're running all your vocals through it. And we should also acknowledge that this could also involve a T4 or T8 mixer, like you said, if you're like a full band with a couple of Pro 32s and sub 1s or sub 2s. You got a lot going through that system.
But the low end on the 16 is nasty. It's amazing, and I've done Bluetooth tracks and played along acoustic to the low end Bluetooth track going through the 16. It's an amazing system just for a DJ too, but it really comes down to the size of your band.
Yeah, as it pertains to like DJing, there's a lot of music has some really low content that you can't actually hear unless you've got a box that's tuned low enough to kind of replicate it. So you would hear a difference with the sub 2 versus a Pro 16, for example. Even though the Pro 16 utilizes that same 10 by 18 inch racetrack driver and it's got tons of thump and it goes pretty low, there are some things that you wouldn't be able to hear in that you can hear with the sub 2.
Yeah, the stuff that kind of breaks your bones apart a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, exactly. So, but I didn't get to play with a full trio yet on the 16. I played duo with the 16, and I played a bass guitar through the 16. And I would love to play a gig where you're playing in that 75 person range and you have a great drummer who knows their space, and maybe the kick drum's flying through it. And that's the only thing, a kick drum or an overhead mic. And then you have your vocal going through it, and you have a guitar amp and a bass amp. And that would be stunning on 16 for that type of, Americana rock folk trio. To really work. Yeah,
and I should add that the crossover point on all these systems is 200 hertz. The compact was a little higher at 400 hertz. So we kind of brought the Pro 8 in line with the rest of the family. And what that does is it lets your kick drum or your bass guitar, left-hand keyboard parts that we've been talking about, kind of emanate from where it needs to emanate from the subwoofer, and everything else just kind of stays up in the mid-high array: vocals, guitars, the airy keyboard parts, horns, strings. And we always say, like, we always refer to vocal clarity in our marketing speak about these systems. And that's really one of the keys to the vocal clarity is allowing the vocals to come from where they need to come from, not bleeding down into the subwoofer. And in addition to vocal clarity, you also get this really great separation of the instruments. Like, you can hear everything that's connected to the system, whether it's recorded music or a trio or a duo.
Yeah, it comes out. It's like it comes out mixed for you. It's really fascinating.
Cool. All right. So just sort of acknowledging, many audio sources that are going to be plugged into your L1-Pro system. There are many other things that you could connect to it, of course. And then the third question is not necessarily an either or. It could be a gig per gig situation, but if for making your purchase, do you value most performance or portability? And I should clarify that, again, the performance of all these systems is great, and the portability of all these systems is great. However, when you start with an L1-Pro 8, as you go up the family line, we are improving the performance. You're getting more SPL, more bandwidth, and performance and portability don't necessarily work hand in hand. So if you were to start with an L1-Pro 32, even though it is super portable with a sub 2, as you go down the line, that is ultimately just a more portable system. And you can see here in these graphics, just sort of the scale as we go from left to right, we're improving our performance, and as we go from right to left, we are improving our portability. And just kind of I was going to say remarkable, but these things are remarkably light. There, I said it, remarkable. It's every single one of these systems is a simple carry from your vehicle to the venue, and then back again. Like when you were talking, Will, you did the dummy check, like, oh shoot, did I forget something?
Yeah.
We were really conscious of making those portability improvements. With the L1-Pro 32, for example, those drivers are just under 2-inch in diameter, as opposed to the 2 1/4 drivers in the Model 2. Model 2 it's a super portable system, but it's not a light system. The L1-Pro 32 in total is 60% lighter than a Model 2.
It's shocking. You're saying it's shockingly light. Just to cut all it's portability is not an issue across the line now. It's just a matter of what sound you need, because portability, it's not an issue. I don't think on any of it. Like even loading up the 32 into my car doesn't feel all that much different. And the sub's there, it's a little bit more, but it's like just the compactness of the sub is simpler and easier and lighter. So for me, it's not even something to worry about or consider. As it should be, you just have to worry about your sound now and what you want.
So, like, as it pertains to making this buying decision, right? Like, if you are, you've got a small vehicle, maybe you can't fit a sub 2 and a Pro 32, so you could gravitate towards the Pro 16 if you're a mobile DJ. Some of the folks in our DJ community, they live in the city, and they've got a 3-story walk-up apartment. So, and you don't leave gear in your car overnight. You got to bring it all up. So portability is definitely a major factor in making buying decisions for your L1-Pro system.
Yeah, and you're one trip with the system. It's a one trip to the vehicle. It's one trip into the venue, one trip up the stairs. Yeah. And I don't have a slide to highlight these, but we have some new accessories that. So currently, let's consider it a 2-handed carrier, right? You've got your Pro 16 subwoofer / power stand in one hand, and you've got a carry bag with the array and the extension in another hand. So you've got two hands, still a single trip. Maybe your guitar is over your shoulder,
walking into the venue. We're making a system carry bag for each one of the systems that allow you to put the power stand as well as the array and extension into a single vessel. So literally, it then becomes a one-handed carry. So even though we've made portability improvements, we're also trying to deliver better kind of vessels for users to transport to and from your vehicle to the venue.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on, so we're not highlighting it here, but one of the big portability stories is the use of the racetrack, because we can just super quick description. If you consider a round driver and you grab the top and the bottom and you pull that, you just kind of stretch it out while keeping the similar surface area. What we've done is we can put this racetrack driver in a taller and slimmer package. That just means a better center of gravity. So it's easier to carry. It fits in smaller spaces and it takes up less space on stage. Talk us through like your, so we've been talking to you for a while, but you were there when we kind of made the leap to racetrack drivers. What were your concerns? And then how do you feel about the results?
My first thought is this some sort of black magic, the sorcery that I, will never understand. And I guess the answer is yes. Like I don't necessarily understand how that works so seamlessly and beautifully. But it makes such a huge difference again with the stage footprint. Because I am the performer, so I'm always kind of thinking those things. Like I need it to sound good, of course. But if I'm going to trip over something on stage, or I lose a lot of my footprint to move around or communicate with the other people on stage, that plays into how I feel about whatever it is I'm using. And also the sight lines, like, as with this L1 series, the sight line's always been amazing to your audience because your main job is to connect. And I feel like this, as far as subwoofers go and their size and they're cumbersome on stage to carry, to move around, the racetrack driver, however you did it, however it was done, sounds tight. It doesn't sound like that false low end that we hear in so many products and headphones where it's boosted or it's false or it's made to sound a little wider when it shouldn't be or too tight when it shouldn't be. It just sounds natural and realistic. I guess that's redundant, natural and realistic. But and then again, you're walking to your car with this thing. It's lighter than on the Legacy, and it just sits by your body better. And after you've worked hard all night and you have to talk to everyone afterwards, maybe you have to pack up and all this stuff, you're carrying this thing that just kind of sits at your side a little better as you're walking, which makes a big difference at the end of the night, and slips into your car nice and more easily.
So you can improve upon your post-show pleasantries with your fans because it's less work to get to the vehicle.
Yeah, my pack-up time with the 32 was about half the time with even the Legacy, and like I said, one trip with the car. So, yeah.
Cool, awesome. That's heavy anecdotal stuff.
Yeah. It's the stuff that matters, though, really, when you're working all night.
It does matter, yeah. I mean, not to keep throwing praise your way, but we work with Will because not only is he super talented, but he's got a great ear and he gives very good feedback. And he is a user. He's a working musician who has very valid feedback as it applies to how it sounds, how the I/O panel is laid out, and how portable it is. So it does matter, definitely. So trying to avoid saying in a nutshell, because it's not really in a nutshell, but any type of user could use any type of system. It's just a matter of picking the things that are most important to you. As some examples, I'm just going to kind of prime the viewers here with some suggested types of users that would probably gravitate towards an L1-Pro 8. For example, a solo acoustic performer, typically playing smaller spaces, a DJ could use this just as a monitor system if they've got like a massive system that they're throwing out onto the dance floor. Usually DJs like an actual monitor system as opposed to just headphones. L1-Pro 8 is great for that. Sometimes DJs have like two systems going. If it's a wedding, you've got like the main kind of reception area, and then maybe you've got a cocktail party going on at the bar. So an L1-Pro 8 is great for that. Also great for public speaking. Super easy to operate, super portable. We've talked about that. I said it again, in a nutshell. In another nutshell, inside the other nutshell, this is the user that they value portability, but also don't have to sacrifice performance, really. And then there's just a little bit more detail here of some of the specs. You can see the low frequency. Here's reiterating the SPL. And the low frequency, we're tuned down to 45 hertz. The compact was 65 hertz, just for reference. So you can go quite a bit lower with this system. And then the Pro 16, this is probably the one that you've had the least experience with. Is that right, Will?
Yeah, I did 1 gig with it.
Yeah, okay.
It was solo.
So as opposed to the 1S, which was the little brother to the Model 2, the Pro 16 is the big brother to the Pro 8. Same form factor. We've got the fully integrated subwoofer. This user also values portability, but performance is a little bit more top of mind to them as well. So could also be used by a solo performer, big enough to handle a duo, for medium and outdoor venues, small to medium and outdoor venues. Great for a mobile DJ system. 2 of these next to a DJ table with a DJ mixer in the middle is amazing. Band vocals in a rehearsal space. Again, as we talked about before, being able to keep up with those acoustic drums and guitar players who always play too loud. And then just some of the specs over here. This goes down to 42 hertz, so you can see why this might be a little bit more ideal for mobile DJs. And then this is sort of a kind of a quandary. A lot of folks ask us, like, Pro 32 with a sub 1 or Pro 32 with a sub 2. What's really the difference? The main difference is that they're both the flagship portable line array, the Pro 32, but the sub 1 is for the user who just values portability a little bit more than they value total output and low end. We still go down to 40 hertz with the sub 1 with that same 7 by 13 inch racetrack that is in the Pro 8, but it doesn't go quite as low as the Pro 32. So I'm sorry, as the sub 2. So this is great for a solo acoustic performer that wants just like they value premium audio. Great for duos as well, trios, small to large spaces. Mobile DJ could totally use this system. Bands could totally use this system. And another thing that the Pro 32 with the sub 1 or sub 2 gives you the option is cardioid, where you can you can stack 2 sub 1s or 2 sub 2s in 1 rear firing and 1 front firing, activate cardioid mode, and you have directional bass. For those of you who haven't seen a lot of our marketing materials, low frequencies, let's say sub 200 hertz, these are omnidirectional. So if you're standing behind a single subwoofer, you're going to hear pretty much the same thing as people who are standing in front of the subwoofer. But if I have a cardioid stack, that 1 rear firing and another front firing, and I activate cardioid mode, I'm going to negate that rear firing energy by 10 dB. Which is a huge difference. I'm sure you will have had those gigs where you just got that annoying low hum that the sound person, for whatever reason, just can't solve.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so basically you can keep elevating your sound with all these. Like I said, for that super pro wedding band, I keep thinking of my friends who have this really far out wedding band called the Prenups, and they constantly, you're putting all these weird spaces as a wedding band, and you need to have some versatility. So that setup allows that. So you don't walk into, you're playing somebody's barn in a field for a wedding and you're in the corner, but you can then direct the low end to not get overwhelmed and everyone can hear each other on stage.
I love the prenups.
Yeah.
So lastly, the Pro 32 with a sub 2. So this user wants to be covered. They want the most volume and the most low end, and they value just premium audio and that maximum low end extension, as well as that modularity aspect we talked about, where you can add a second sub, you can put the sub in cardioid mode. Ideal for mobile DJs because we've got the sub 2 is tuned down to 37 hertz, so there's some low end content that really just kind of jumps out at you that you just can't hear in other systems. Kind of makes the hair on your arm stand up. Can also be used by a solo performer in really large spaces, duos and trios, medium to large spaces, as well as outdoor venues. That long throw over distance, as you mentioned, Will, really just when you're in outdoor spaces, sometimes outdoor, that's where sound just goes to die because it just travels in a straight line. But these systems, particularly the L1-Pro 32, is great outdoors, really works well. Good for bands, and then the cardioid position, as I mentioned. You had this system probably the longest, did you not, Will?
Yeah. And I used it in a performance / DJ setting for a large party that was outside, people in costumes and stuff like that. And the ease of going in between, I played electric guitar through it. Vocals, I had 2 vocals going, and the ease of having like a DJ set up just with my phone, going Bluetooth to it, then jumping to a performance, and both having the power and meeting the needs of the event was pretty seamless. But as can happen, like the worry is that if you are in a kind of gig where maybe you are having like the downtime music as DJ, and it's really loud and has a lot of low end in the track, and then you got to go up and play solo or something. It just wasn't a problem with this because I think first of all I played electric on purpose because I knew I could carry some weight with the electric guitar through the 32. And
did you go in through a modeler? Or
I went through the Strymon modeler that they just released and my pedal board, and it's amazing. It's an amazing setup, and it's just so easy in this kind of thing. Because like I said, I put all those pedals and those cables in my S1 backpack, and the only other thing I had to do was grab my guitar. If I really wanted to like power through, I could have just strapped the guitar to the front of my body, and it would have been fine. But the 32 kind of just kept me wider and had a lot of like the character and the tone that I would want from my electric in that solo type of gig to kind of carry and like keep the party moving and the show moving from those breaks with DJs and the dynamicness of tracks that I was playing.
In a post-COVID world, do you see like modeling has come a long way, like in the last 5-6 years, right? It's not the Line 6 spiders,
right?
No offense to Line 6, but that was it was not necessarily pro audio. There's some really great stuff out there, the Strymon and the Kempers and the Helixes. Do you see yourself using an L1-Pro system with a modeler and no guitar amp in gigs moving forward?
Pretty much. I mean, I would have trouble with some of the amps that I was getting in rentals and tours like overseas. So I was always looking for something, but I wasn't gonna just buy something to get through a gig. But I really love this modeler, and I have used S1s and F1s and the Legacy L1 in Europe on tours because a lot of places will be going to a rock club and the next day we'll be playing like this outdoor square, and we learned quickly to take responsibility for our own sound. So we've always traveled with either the F1 or the L1. And so those modelers and stuff like that, just again, transportation, ease of use. I think as the economics of music change, you look for gear that is going to make sure you are authentically representing yourself first and foremost, in your tone, in your vision. But then you have to prepare for the travel that is needed and the cost of putting on your show. And sometimes as the business shifts, we have to make adjustments. And luckily there's enough gear coming to the market now that can do that for the creative.
And you'll have your chance.
Yeah.
We will come back. We'll be back.
Yeah. We will. We will.
Yes.
I think that was cool because in the beginning of COVID, a bunch of friends reached out to me about Bose stuff, and I drove everyone to getting an L1 Legacy, and it made their summer. It saved their income levels, and they're performing outside and doing all kinds of gigs and backyard gigs. And I think next year in the spring and the summer it's really going to be heavily outdoor things and based on what can we do on the fly. And then by this time next year we'll be back in clubs and everything like that. So you guys came to the market right at the right time for this, because it's a time to be creative. We're bringing music to the people.
I think we might owe you a commission on all the folks that you referred to us to use the L1 legacy systems.
Well, I mean, but honestly, on behalf of myself and everyone else that comes in, I get to hang with all DJs and other musicians and songwriters and band leaders that you have in there. You guys really bring in working professionals and you listen to them. And that speaks a lot. And I think it shows in this product, because I think more than any other portable PA, and even you guys made a huge leap here, that I don't know if this is a good thing, but I don't hear the product here. I hear the performance, I hear the performer, and I hear the music. And like you were saying about how the voice comes out and it's clear, like it's built into the system. You hear the artist, and you don't even think of the system that much. And the way you built it, you can hardly see it now, but you hear it and you feel it, and that's what's most important. And that's why that's what we're all missing a lot of right now. But so I thank you for having me and having other professionals in there to be a part of it.
That's fantastic, Will. Thank you. You should be in marketing. That's really good stuff.
All right, I'll do it. I'll quit music.
So I'm not sure if we're we're running up against the hour here. I'm not sure if the live stream is just gonna stop at 7. I'm gonna keep plugging away. If we have time, we can do answer some questions with a quick Q&A session. This last page is just sort of like a fill in the blanks of all the other venues that we didn't really talk about, and really just to highlight that concept that any L1 system can work for any type of user. It just really depends on the specific types of gig requirements or gear requirements that you've got. For entertainment, for education, for hospitality, for house of worship, for business applications, and for fitness as well. So there's an L1-Pro system out there for you. And with that, you want to answer some questions, Will?
Let's do it.
Cool. I'm just going to scroll through the chat here to see if there's any questions that popped up from some of the viewers. How does stereo piano samples sound through each unit? This would be great for the solo and duo keyboardist as well. Well, each system is a mono system, so I can tell you that whatever is in that stereo file for information will be propagated through the mid-high array. It's interesting, when we first started listening to the L1-Pro systems, and this is mostly true for the legacy systems as well. When we listened to recorded music in particular, that was obviously stereo, we were thought that we were hearing something like sort of a stereo image, which is really just the articulation of those drivers and that 180-degree coverage. It just kind of almost gives you like this false stereo image. So to answer this question, stereo piano will sound awesome. If you really want stereo, then just get two L1-Pro systems.
Yeah, like Vince King asked, can you use two Pro 32s as front of house? And I mean, I'm dying to hear that. I can't wait to hear a band play like that, but you can.
Yes. Tom Davis says, is crossover 180 or 200? The new smaller array speakers lead me to think this may be even 250. So these are, maybe I already clarified this in what we were talking about earlier, but 200 hertz is the crossover point for all three mid-high array systems. Kevin Poppin asks, can an external sub be connected to the Pro 8? Absolutely, can be connected to the Pro 8. So we didn't talk in detail about subs and their submatch connection. Submatch is a proprietary. I encourage you to go to our website and watch the L1-Pro 32 or the sub videos or all the videos to get some more detail on submatch. It's a proprietary connection that delivers voltage from the wall as well as digital audio to the sub 2. Because sub 1 and sub 2 need to be plugged into the wall, or they need power from the wall. Rather than have to plug another thing into the wall, we invented submatch that just sort of helps optimize your cable management. So when using it with the Pro 8, you don't have a submatch option because that's not on the Pro 8. You can just simply plug in an IEC cable, connect it to the wall outlet, and go full bandwidth line out. And then on the Pro 8, you simply select low pass filter or the L1 setting. Let's see. My Model 2 feeds back like crazy. I also use my classics that never feed back, so I'm concerned with the articulated array of the Pro 32. So inherently, remember we talked about this not screaming volume, as a technical term, screaming, coming from the mid-high array when you're standing next to it. That's sort of what gives us this relatively feedback resistant feature to the portable line arrays. However, with a system like the Pro 16, the Pro 32, and the Pro 8 to a certain extent, if you are close enough and your EQ is just right and you're loud enough, you will hear feedback. But I mean, what are your thoughts on feeding back? You've sunk into a Pro 32, Will?
Yeah, I did not have any problems feeding back, but it really depends where you're placing it. And I guess my answer for that is, again, the footprint is so much smaller and workable. The system's workable. Its lightness helps you place it in a different spot. So if you're in a tight situation performing and you feel like the only place to put this system is a little bit over my shoulder or right next to me, you'll have more flexibility with the 8 and the 16 of moving it around. I didn't have a problem at all with feedback whatsoever.
Good. Yeah. Placement is key. No question. And I hope that answers Matt Collins' question, which he asked, what's feedback like on the Pro 16 versus the compact? My L1-1S wasn't able to be next to me, but I can put the compact right next to me. That's, again, has a lot to do with placement, but the 1S is a considerably louder system than the compact. But with the right placement, you should still be able to hear everything, use it as front of house, use it as a monitoring system, and not feedback. We'll do, so 7:05, I think we started about 10 minutes late, so we'll do 3 more questions.
And for those S1 users, like I have an S1 and I've used it plenty of times for small gigs and house concerts, a little bit of street performing, all that kind of stuff. I always carry it with me on the road too, in case like a monitor is really bad in a club, or I have to do some sort of radio station thing where they don't have anything at all. But the S1 I've used, again, it's that idea of it for a monitor with your 8, because you have to put the 8 out in front of you and you want it to fly in a certain way, or the 16 out in front of you. The S1 is just perfect for the monitor.
And since you brought up S1, I should mention that there is also, I say it's a secret crossover point, but it's secret because it's not marked on the back of the sub 1 or sub 2. But if you press and hold the line out EQ button on the sub 1 or sub 2, it engages an optimized L1-Pro EQ at roughly, it's like 150 hertz. This, you would go in through the line ins on the sub 1 or sub 2 and then out to the S1. And basically it lets the sub do all the low end work, and then the S1 doesn't have to work quite as hard. There are lots of S1 users out there, so pair your S1s with the sub 1, makes a really nice little micro PA system. Let's see. Any questions jumping out at you, Will?
I'm only able to see the same 4 questions. I don't even know how to use Facebook. I'm sorry. It won't show me all the comments.
Okay, question about the T1. Can I use the, it looks like Tom Davis has actually responded to the other viewer's question. The question is about the T1. So all the L1-Pro systems will power a T4 or a T8. Legacy L1 products did not power a T8. You had to use the power supply. Legacy L1 products, sorry, L1-Pro products will power a T1. However, the audio is disabled in a T1. That is because the architecture of a T1 is different than the architecture of the T4 and T8. And the DSP that we use in the L1-Pro systems is unfortunately not compatible with the T1. However, you can still go out through the analog outputs and still use your T1 if you're partial to that. Let's see if I can find one more question. Can I use the S1 piggybacked onto the Pro 32 with a sub 2? Sure, you can actually. That's kind of the scenario that you described, Will. Like if you wanted to use the L1-Pro as, I'm sorry, the S1, maybe you wanted to keep your volume pretty high and the placement wasn't ideal to have it next to you. You could go line out from the Pro 32 into your S1 and use that as your monitoring system. And then Joe Tunon says, would the Pro 16 or Pro 32 be the closer match to the Model 2 acoustic guitarist / singer? The L1 Pro 32 is the replacement for the Model 2. So if you're looking for that premium line array, straight articulated line array with the tight top and bottom vertical control, then you'd want to use a Pro 32. What the heck, we'll do one more as we are right at 7:10. Let's see. Pro 32 with sub 2 versus F1 stack. So the F1 stack is that's a point source, for better or for worse. Even though we've got a little bit of a line array there, it's a point source, so it's going to act like a pole mounted speaker. F1 is amazing. I know you've used F1s many times, Will. It just does something different than a Pro 32. It does not have 180-degree coverage worth of coverage. Its drop off over distance is is sooner than a Pro 32. However, it is louder. It's like 130 dB max SPL peak, I think. So
I mean, the F1 is, are you putting on a concert and you have a front of house guy?
right. Good point.
Pro 32 is, are you putting on a concert and you don't? and like you're saying, the spread and the coverage of the 32 is a lot different. The F1, are you going to be like, this audience is right in front of you, and that's what you're going to have all the time. 32 could be the audience is right in front of you, but maybe the audience is scattered about. I don't know, but that's my quick take on it.
Yeah, with F1, you'd need a mixer, as you alluded to, with a front of house sound person. Mm-hmm. There's no app control, so no sort of adjustments on the fly by the artist. So there you go.
Yep.
So we are 11 past the hour. I want to thank you again very much, Will Dailey, for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Best of luck with everything. Any gigs you want to mention coming up?
I don't have any gigs coming up. They're going to the cold winter. I'm going to start streaming again from my Facebook page if I can learn how to read Facebook comments again. And going to get in the studio a little bit this week. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I'll plug your Pattern of Deconstruction, your latest release.
Yeah.
As well as Golden Walker, just a killer record.
Thank you.
And of course, National Throat.
Thank you.
Find him at willdailey.com. Find him on Spotify. Find him on iTunes. Yeah. Everywhere there is music, you can find Will Dailey.
I will be there.
Cool.
With an L1.
Yes. Of course. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in tonight. It was our pleasure to talk to you about the L1-Pro systems. We hope to do this again. Take care, and we will see you soon.